Okay, let's dive into something really interesting happening right at the Korean border. A bit strange, frankly.
Yeah, definitely unusual.
We're looking at sources discussing this recent quiet near the DMZ, those cross-border broadcasts. They seem to have stopped.
That's the focus, yeah.
So our mission here is to unpack what was going on, what exactly changed, and maybe, just based on this info, what this quiet could, signify.
And the stuff they were broadcasting. Quite a contrast.
Right. We'll get into that. So paint the picture for us. What was it like recently, say, in 2024?
Well, it definitely wasn't quiet then. The sources describe North Korea setting up these massive loudspeakers and blasting these, well, strange noises around the clock, apparently, right near the border.
Strange noises, like what kind? Do the sources say anything more specific than just strange?
The word used is eerie. That's the main description. Not much more detail on the sound itself, but constant and definitely unsettling for the residents.
Eerie. Wow, I can only imagine living with that. And South Korea's response wasn't more eerie noise, right?
No, completely different approach. South Korea fired up its own loudspeakers, but with music. Lots of K-pop hits, the sources mentioned.
K-pop? Seriously?
K-pop, yeah. And news bulletins mixed in. So you basically had this bizarre sound war.
Eerie sounds versus K-pop and news. That is something else. Must have been incredibly disruptive.
Exactly. The sources really emphasize how unsettling and disruptive it was for people living right there.
Okay, so that was the recent status quo, this sonic battle. How did we get from that to silence? What shifted?
It looks like the first move came from South Korea, according to the sources anyway.
Okay.
Their new president, Lee Jae-myung, has talked about wanting to rebuild a trusting relationship with Pyongyang.
Right. That's been the stated goal.
So as a sort of goodwill gesture aligning with that goal, Seoul decided to switch off its broadcasts. The music, the news, everything.
So South Korea turned off the K-pop first. A deliberate step. And how did North Korea react?
Well, based on the information we're looking at, North Korea seems to have followed suit. They apparently switched off their loudspeakers, too.
Interesting. So it wasn't like a formal agreement, okay, we both stop. More like a reaction.
That's exactly how the sources present it. Seems like a response to Seoul's action, a kind of maybe reciprocal de-escalation moment by moment.
Do we know when this happened? Like, pinpoint the timing?
The sources give a pretty specific detail for one area. The absolute last time the North Korean broadcast was reportedly heard was pretty recent, Wednesday, June 11th.
Okay, June 11th.
Around 6 p.m. local time. And this was specifically on Gangwon Island, that island northwest of Seoul, very close to the border.
Right, I know the area.
And the sources also note that in some other border areas, those eerie broadcasts had actually stopped a bit before that.
So maybe not a single flip of a switch everywhere, but a process, maybe ending around June 11th on Gangwon Island?
Seems that way, yes. A gradual stop, concluding in key spots then.
So what's the big takeaway here? What's the significance of this quiet, according to these sources?
The main point highlighted is that right now, for this moment, actual peace and quiet has returned to this heavily militarized zone.
A rare moment of quiet.
A very rare moment, especially compared to the, sonic aggression we were just talking about. It's presented as a notable pause amidst all the usual tension.
Okay, so let's bring it back to you, listening in. We've done this deep dive, focusing just on these sources about the broadcasts stopping near the DMZ.
You saw the weird contrast, eerie sounds, K-pop.
Right. Then South Korea's gesture under President Lee aimed at trust, and North Korea's apparent response, leading to quiet.
Yeah, it's a clear example of how actions, even stopping an action, are used as signals, attempts to shift the dynamic.
Exactly. So thinking only about what we've discussed from these sources, considering the history there, the tension, the really unusual communication methods.
Like loudspeakers blasting K-pop.
Exactly. What could this specific moment of quiet, this pause in the noise along the border, actually mean for that whole idea of rebuilding trust? What message might silence itself be sending right now?